Welcome to the Enlightened Misfits podcast, a space for spiritual entrepreneurs who refuse to settle for anything less than their purpose. I am your host, Lauren Perlingi. After surviving a near-death experience and being declared gone for 3 minutes, I woke up with a mission to help women turn self-sabotage into self-compassion and fear into fuel. Here, we're going to dive into raw conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories designed to help you break free from old patterns, claim your voice, and build a business that lights up your soul. If you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold, you're in the right place. This is where Misfits rise into their power. Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren, and in today's episode, I have Loni. She is a licensed professional clinical counselor. Welcome, Loni. So happy to have you here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm excited actually to have you here with us today because your work weaves together trauma healing, expressive arts, and the human experience in such a beautiful way. And I'd love to start out with what you first called, what called you to this path, working with people that were facing grief, maybe illness, or maybe like hard moments in life. So what drew you to this work and how has it shaped you in your own healing journey?
That's a really good question. I always say, like, we do what we know, right? So this is not my first career. I very transparent. Like, this is my fourth career. It took me a while to figure out who I am and what I want to do, like a lot of us. But I had to go through life and my own traumas and health stuff. But I think the easiest way to say it is when I was young, I was in the performing arts. So singing, dancing, theater. And that was my healing. Like I didn't realize it then, but that was my therapy. And so when I decided to go back to school to be a therapist, I really wanted to help people heal from whatever it was they were going through. But I touch on that experience that I have of knowing that the expressive arts can be healing and can be used as a tool for healing. So I've gone through my own grief and loss of self through medical stuff and life changes. And the way that I integrate it is through my paintings or my writing or dance and movement or music. I always say I'm a very poor guitar player, but I'm still learning. You know,
There's growth there.
there's growth in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, really trying to help use our inner intuition because as humans, like our core language is expressive. So if we think back to like the first humans, they communicated through symbols and like grunts or movements. And so that's like innate in us as human beings of how do we communicate and how do we process it when things are so embodied. Trauma is very embodied. So how do we have a more embodied approach to healing?
Yeah, I love that. And that's actually so true. Like grief doesn't always, to me, and in my experience, and obviously you're the expert in here, you can speak on this, but I feel like grief, and even with my clients, doesn't always look like losing somebody that we love. I
Mm-mm.
feel like for me and my experience too, is sometimes it's losing like the thought of who we are. And like, to be honest, there's been so many moments this year that I forgot. I've gone through so much changing and up leveling and loss. And it's like, just talking about it, somebody was like, well, that's grief. Like,
Hmm.
that's, it doesn't have to be trauma. It could be, it is trauma for me anyway, but,
Yeah.
it could just be that illness of self, maybe, or like working. And I know that you said that you work a lot of like with medical grief, and that could, to me, that could be like a deep sense of like identity
Mhm.
loss that comes from like a diagnosis or surgery or chronic conditions. So like, how do you help people move through this kind of like, what is it? What do they call it? Invisible grief?
Invisible grief or ambiguous loss.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
really like the term ambiguous loss. And it was kind of coined for like caregivers of Alzheimer's patients originally, at least from my studies of it and research.
Oh, okay.
But kind of over time, it's like the loss of something that's still there, right? But it's not there. And
Right.
so with illness, like there's all different kinds of ambiguous loss. There's a loss of self from illness, whether it's, you know, like a surgery where you have to like lose a like an organ or a body part or something like that, right?
Yeah.
or like I'm talking like breast cancer or ovarian cancer, or I've worked with men with testicular cancer. That's a loss of a physical piece of the body. Um, there's loss of self out of a relationship or a divorce or a job change. So there's all these different kinds of losses, and just kind of my like as as a society, we think of trauma, it has to be this big T, like major impact things, but we have these little T traumas over time and stressful experiences, and those can hurt just as much and be as much as impactful as something that's really big, like a car accident or something like that. So yeah, totally went on a tangent there.
No, it's
Yes.
okay.
So yeah, so grief and loss, it's this big thing that we don't realize how complex it can be.
Yes. Yeah. So would you be open, and you can say no, you don't have to
Yeah.
be open about your own experience. Would you be open to explaining about your own experience with high risk breast cancer and ovarian cancer, like the emotional weight of, those preventative choices, like a powerful example of like courage and self trust? Like, what emotions had came up for you in that process that you also now guide your clients through? Or what would you say if somebody was standing in the same space of like uncertainty?
I think it's trust in yourself and trust the process. It's been like this mixed bag of emotions because it took me so long. It took me almost 20 years to come to the decision that I was going to have a double mastectomy and preventative care. And I've had, you know, a full hysterectomy for ovarian cancer prevention. And so it's it's like a loss of femininity in a way, right? These are very feminine identified parts of our body, and it makes you a woman. And so without them, like, what does that say about me? So there's that aspect of that. But then the physical aspect of physically changing my body, like the double mastectomy, and I'm getting up to have my reconstruction in 2 weeks, couple weeks. Um,
It's
it's
circle
just like I'm a
closed.
completely different person and I don't feel like myself in my body. So there's a loss of safety in your body.
Yeah.
And so it's mourning, the breasts. It's mourning this time that I'm going to have to, sacrifice or kind of take off to heal.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of anxiety. There's been some anger, like
Sure.
I'm going to swear a little bit. I call them the fuckets. Like sometimes,
Be us on this podcast.
right? Okay, so I'm a sweary person. I've got like sweary things all over. Um, I call them the fuckets. Like, why the
Yeah.
fuck is this happening? Like, why me? But then there's also times where like I feel very empowered because I am in control of, lack of a better word, the cancer, like the scenario. So the reason why I'm doing it is so I don't develop cancer in its fullest form.
Right.
So it's there is a there's lack of safety, but then there's also a kind of a gain of safety. Or like for my future, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that kind of like when you talk about that reminds me of something that you might often talk about too, is like that I call it like that post traumatic growth, like
Post-traumatic
after.
growth.
Yeah. And I learned that from a mentor probably like 3 years ago when I
Hmm.
first started doing trauma healing. I mean, I'm at different stages of being a trauma healer myself, but like, and helping other people. I forgot about that, like that
Yeah.
post traumatic growth. And somebody said it to me, and I was like, when I was reading your form that you felt like you had sent over, I was like, oh my gosh, she. I'm like, now I can get her, expertise of this,
Yeah.
because like for me, the idea of like pain was actually the catalyst, and I know this is for most people like
Hmm.
that have walked this path, but was actually the catalyst for transformation.
Hmm.
It seems like that, listening to you, that's also the case for you, obviously, because that's something that you talk about. So can you kind of share an example of like what that might look like? Maybe like a moment, if like the listener, like for a listener that could be somebody like found a new strength on the other side of something that felt incredibly hard, maybe the last 3 months or the last year, or, wherever they are.
Yeah. I love the term post-traumatic growth. I love doing trainings on it. I love talking about it because we don't always focus on the growth that can come and the healing that can come from traumatic experiences. And we pathologize it to be this really negative thing. But it's, what's the phrase? Like from the lotus flower, from the mud, the lotus flower doth grow, right? So from this muck and dirt, something really beautiful. And so there's there's a kind of a mindset in grief and loss where it's like, how do you make meaning? How do I make meaning of this loss? How do I make meaning of this, ambiguous loss and the stressful experience? And I find that post-traumatic growth is a way to make meaning of it and make meaning that is significant, that shifts who you are and your identity and your relationship to the experience in a positive way. It might not always be, good, but it's also how do I create something to be whole out of something that was broken? That, right? And so for me, post-traumatic growth is shifting my experiences and my mindset of what I get to do versus I have to do that. I have to do this. I get to do these things. I get to go in my art studio and just mess around and maybe not create anything, but have something healing out of it. There's like most people know, or some people know the Japanese art of kintsugi. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the repair of the broken bowl, but I think what people misunderstand is that like you have to repair something out of one thing. It can be like a combination of things to create this beautiful new thing. And so I think the best way I can describe, and I use my analogy for like an earthquake with post-traumatic growth, because a lot of people use the term resilience. Oh, you're so resilient. But resilience is like going back to baseline. And so post-traumatic growth, it's like, or resilience is like when the earthquake is done shaking, everything just settles and is back to how it was.
Right.
Post-traumatic growth, it's like the earthquake is shaking, things kind of get broken, and how do you rebuild it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say thank you for that because I feel like recently I've heard, well, you're resilient, you're resilient.
Hmm.
And I kind of took myself back a little bit when I was like, no, there's something different. And then I just heard when I heard post traumatic growth, and then I was looking at your form the other day and I was like, we're going to talk about this because I literally just went through a little layer of this too
Yeah.
myself. And I also was helping clients through because I'm just a mirror to a little bit. I'm more a little bit more wisdom to help clients walk them through what I may have just maybe potentially went through too.
Yeah.
And I had a moment of like, I was looking at my text messages or how I was speaking or journaling. And I noticed I switched my words and you said it of I have to. And I caught myself because I voice message a lot.
Hmm.
So it's just easier for me. I like to
Yeah.
voice message, hence why I have a podcast. But they're usually my voice messages are like mini podcast episodes. Some of my
Yeah.
clients are like, oh, I'll listen to your mini podcast. But it's like I have all the information. I'm
Yeah.
answering you, I'm giving you all the stuff, and then ask questions. And they're like, nope, you told me everything. So,
Yeah.
but I kept hearing myself say, I have to. And then I'm like, wait a second, I get to. And it was like
Hmm.
that moment of, wait a second, I have to go back to, because then I kept hearing this resilience. And I'm like, that actually triggered anger out of me because I'm like, but it's not that. It's
Mm-mm.
that and this. So thank you for that because I think that people listening to this also are going to resonate with, or it's like, this toxic positivity of you should
Yeah.
just be grateful. And it's like you
Hmm.
should stop shooting on people and stop telling
Yes.
them to be grateful. People actually have to be shown how to be grateful. Like back to basics for me, when I started doing really in-depth trauma healing 3 years ago, my first mentor was like, you need to write gratitudes. Well, sure, that's great. I know how to do that.
Yeah.
I've done that before. I've done it, when I first started healing like 7 years ago, like really truly taking it seriously. But I put, I'm grateful for blah, blah, blah. Did I believe it? Probably not. But then
Hmm.
she said, no, 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 you're adding because. And I'm like, what? No, I'm not. And she goes, yes, you are. I'm like, mm-mm. She's like, okay, don't. So I didn't for a couple of days. And then I'm like, okay, fine. All right, fine, I'll do it. And it really changed my mindset on like things I had to forgive, and specifically just things that have came up with my ex-husband, my daughter's father, of I'm grateful for my ex-husband because he gave me my daughter.
Yeah.
That is that. And that's it. That's the role. That's
Yeah.
it. I can let go of it. I don't have to keep reliving all of that. But so like I feel like the way that you also described that too can really give people the perspective on I get to, because you
Hmm.
do get to. And you
Yeah.
need to be in that state, because that victimhood, which I feel like comes up for all of us, like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter where you are in your journey, like I have to do this. Blah, blah, blah. Like, and you get in that negative mindset, and it's like flipping to, because I was there a couple weeks ago. I'm going to be very raw and real. And I have
Yeah.
people, and I say this because people, my own clients listen to this too. And like, I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to portray that I am perfect, So, and I feel like you are the same way, like
Hmm.
100%. Like, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm dealing with. This is the real life bullshit that I have to deal with right now. I mean, it's not bullshit, but it's like, it feels
Well,
like,
kind of. It feels like it sometimes.
yeah, like this is my life. This is my
Yeah.
real life. This is what I'm going through. I don't want you to feel bad for me. This is what this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time. This is what I went through. Now, of course, I don't necessarily have to be careful to talk about what I'm going through when I'm going through it, because I will project emotion, and that's not
Hmm.
where I want to be. It's more of like, post. This
Yeah.
is what I just went through. This is how I process it. Or I don't know what I'm doing and I need help, like
Yeah.
that's too. So for, people that, when you just talked about creative expression. So for you and your clients, how does
Hmm.
that open up doors for healing in like more of like a non-traditional talk therapy way that,
Yeah.
talk therapy does not open up that door for that creative expression?
Right. Talk therapy isn't for everybody and expressive arts isn't for everybody, but what I like is to interweave them. And what expressive arts does is it's you can have words without having words. And
Right.
you might not have the words, you might not know exactly what you're feeling, but it's the I I'm going to, again, use the word embody or put whatever I'm feeling onto the page or into the words or into the lyrics, or I'm just going to move my body just to represent however it feels inside. And so, what I like about it, it's a really safe way to externalize these really difficult internal, kind of feelings and experiences. And there's another piece of it where it's like we work in metaphor a lot. And so I'm working through this idea of the scribbles on the page represent, you know, whatever my brain is feeling like right now or whatever. And so it's a really safe way to process really difficult things and things that especially like because I come at things from a very like psychodynamic depth psychology kind of a Jungian lens where it's like where are those roots, like what messages were you given about healing that maybe are unconscious defenses that are blocks that are keeping you. So there's this idea of flow in expressive arts where if you just let go or you're not really tuned into what you think you should be thinking and rather just going with it, there's so much magic that can happen in the healing. I have a lot of my clients, I have them make masks of very different, varieties. Um, but for like the inside, I like the inside outside mask kind of concept. And on the outside is what I show the world, and on the inside, it's what I hide. And I love sometimes we do it in session, and a lot of times I just send them home and say, come back. But my favorite thing is when they're like, I didn't realize I felt like that. When
Mm,
I was doing this, I wasn't really talking, but as I was working, I'm like, I didn't realize that is what I'm hiding. It's really powerful.
yeah. Yes, it definitely is. Just going through a session with my own, trauma healer literally 2 days ago, and last week too. Um, a couple times I realized, she's really into human design, and I don't know how much you know about human design, but my incarnation cross is actually called karma of masks.
Oh,
So when you just said masks, I am so good unbelievably good with noticing other people's masks and helping them
Mm-hmm.
through that. But I'm also really good at identifying my own now, obviously.
Yeah.
However, that, my body going through all of that is, we all have to, I think most people say like, oh, I have to wear different hats. It's more of like,
Mm-hmm.
I have to wear different masks. But even me, there's a shadow, obviously. At some point, I can't see my own shadow. So it's like, I have to
Mm-hmm.
have, and the reason why I say that is because I heard somebody say, and we were in session, well, I already did that. Or I healed that. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to remember that it's healing. And I had to remind myself of this, like healing is in layers because it's like that layer. Okay, then let's go deeper. And like, to be
Yeah.
honest, if you come from that place of like, I have to, like, then you're like, you don't get to that place of, oh, I get to. So like, and I was there in the beginning, and now it's like, I get so excited. I think I actually probably enjoy it more than most people. It's like, probably like people are like, we gotta check on her. Is she really excited about it? Like, we should probably check on her. But
Yeah.
it's because I know how fast it can happen if I stop
Yeah.
resisting it. And it's like, that's kind of probably why I love human design so much, because I can see it, not necessarily with myself. I know it, but I also can self-reflect and be like, that's my gift. Why am I
Mm-hmm.
in a shadow of my gift when I could be in a higher expression? And it's literally that step. So I
Yeah.
feel like for, like you said, and it's hard for me. It's been a challenge for me to be creative if I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like I want to be creative.
Yeah.
But sometimes I actually just need to talk about it. And I'm not saying that talk therapy ever worked for me, but I need both. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's why when I say it's like what you do is very like, it's like beautiful, because I feel like people don't realize that you need some creative,
Mm-hmm.
and that block in your, like the sacral area is what you need. Like, so
Yeah.
if it's playing with my daughter, sometimes it's just playing with my daughter, doing,
Yeah.
like using my imagination, playing with my daughter, and not literally thinking about internalizing what I'm going through, and just being like fun and making things fun. So it's like literally, that's why I'm like, I think I need to make my life more fun. If it's
Yeah.
like in session, because that's kind of like the creative piece. I am very creative, but it's
Yeah.
like you said, I didn't realize that I was wearing that mask still, and I wasn't connecting to my body, because that's literally how, your body feels it all. You can't
Yeah.
run from
No,
that.
we are like a whole system. We're not just our emotions, our
Right.
bodies, and like our bodies hold things. And sometimes our bodies know more than our minds do. But I like it like the interweaving because it engages both hemispheres of the brain. And so it's a whole brain approach and it's interwoven, right? So it's yeah. But it is, and sometimes when it's like I'm not feeling creative, there is there's a kind of a term that I heard really early in my expressive art therapy training was there are words and no words, there's music and no music, there's movement and no movement, and there is sound and no sound. And so it's really powerful because sometimes that creative part is showing us something, even when we don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is like I don't like create things
Yeah.
or like paint, but it is through music. Like,
Yeah.
same thing with my husband. If he doesn't know how to, if I ask him what is like, how are you feeling, or like, do you need to talk to me about something, or there could just be some tension that I feel that maybe
Yeah.
he doesn't consciously understand, or he doesn't consciously know how to ask, like, what's going on, or like, this is how I feel. He will send me a song. And in that
Yeah.
song, I'm listening to the words and I'm listening to the feeling, and I
Hmm.
understand to a deeper level of what it is. And he's going to think, like, he always says when he sends me a song, he's like, well, I just like the song. And I'm like, but you do know that there's words attached to that
Yeah.
song. And that's
Yeah.
what, so he's now, his awareness is like, that's how I feel, or that's how I look, because he's always been really big into music.
Yeah.
And I noticed, so am I, like, to change my, like, if I want to like change my frequency or change my mood,
Hmm.
I'm not going to listen to sad songs. However, in the beginning, I did, because I was feeling sad. But that amplified when I was feeling sad. So it's like, I'm not going to do that. I mean, I'm going to honor that process, but I need to listen to the feel sad. And I also need to
Yes.
kind of raise my vibration in that area because
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep feeling bad for myself, So it's like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like how that expressive art creativity, like sometimes I like to create stuff, like it's not
Yeah.
often, but my
But I
daughter
think that, yeah.
does. She's very creative and she likes to do it. So it's like she likes to paint, she likes to color. That's what she does. And
Yeah.
angry, sad, happy, mad, whatever. That is how she expresses her emotion, and that's how I know that she does that. So
Yeah.
I'll say, let's go color. And it's black. It's usually black and red. It's usually it's red or it's blue for sad. Or
Yeah.
I'm like, draw me a picture about how you feel. She draws me a picture about how she feels. And then we don't talk about it. She doesn't normally like to talk about it. It's like, that's how I feel. I
Yeah.
don't make a big deal about, like, and that's just kind of like, she just kind of intuitively has always done that. And I am curious about her drawing something
Yeah.
time, but I'm like, who's that? And you're like, mommy. And it's like, mommy looks scary, but
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
like, oh,
I
that's
always ask, like,
so
what does this color mean? Because red for one kid might mean something totally different for
cute.
another kid.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I do find that, like, especially for young, how old is your daughter?
She is 5. She'll be 6
Yeah.
in December.
So that's a developmentally appropriate way of communicating what she's feeling. And sometimes just putting it on the page and coloring it is her way of processing it.
Yeah,
So she might not need to talk about it,
yeah,
which is the coolest thing about it. But
yeah,
I love that you talked about music because music is so healing on so many different levels. But I love to create I create playlists with my clients, but there will
okay.
be times where I will bring in a song and I will have them rewrite the lyrics with their own lyrics. And then we will listen to the song and they will say their lyric as it comes up in the song. It is so powerful. But
Wow.
it's how do I have it's so cool.
Yeah,
Um, but it's how do I find something to counterbalance what I'm feeling? So, do I need something to inspire me when I'm not feeling inspired? Do I need something to remind me that I get to live? Do I need to like remind me of like I am a powerful badass woman, whatever. But we need those things and music really does something to the brain where it like, enhances dopamine and, gets to different like memory cores and it can install positive connotation with things if you do it kind of with what you need. So
yeah.
anyway,
I think that also, now that you say that, I guess consciously I didn't even that awareness, but maybe like subconsciously or my higher self or somebody was telling me this, but that's why I did Reiki,
yeah.
and then like Reiki master, and I was like, this is just not enough for me. And then one of my mentors was like, well, I'm doing Theta Reiki, and I went through her program doing, I already was Reiki master. So, and we did Theta, and I'm telling you, the like Theta healing, like it's like the mindset, like of like the different, like what you just talked about, like the brain, and it's just like Reiki takes that out, whatever part of whatever's going on, it takes it out. And I've noticed through just doing practice, like, and doing
Mhm.
with my clients, that there was, in the beginning, I was like, so we're taking this part out, but then we're not replacing it. To me, you can't just replace it with a belief or a
Yeah.
new thing that eventually gets the same pattern, cycle, whatever is going on in there, because like we can't feel empty. Like you have to
No.
like replace it with something. So the theta healing was more of like, let's actually incorporate a new, like, whole new vibration or a
Yeah.
whole new thing. And it's again also why I think I went down the shamanic path too, because shamanic, whatever you call it, however you call it, it's getting to the root. So it's
Hmm.
like getting to the root, and it's like changing that root wherever
Yeah.
it is. Because people are like, oh yeah, I want to learn from a shaman. I'm like, you can be your own shaman.
Yeah.
It's just getting to the root. And it's like, I know that I am not, I know that I'm probably, a very small collective of people that believe that. There's other people that are like, you have to do this. You do have to go through, you have to be very careful with
Yeah.
anything. But it's like, no, I can teach you how to do it. And it's very simple. Like, you don't have to keep coming back to me, and then you can teach other people. Like, you
Yeah.
don't, of course I love, people coming back to me, but it's more of like, that's not my purpose. I know that I'm supposed to just teach what I have. And I feel like with you too, it's like teaching and then just kind of spreading it to other people that wherever it needs to go. And I feel like
Yeah.
that like shift when, people start to create that experience instead of just, surviving experiences is
Yeah.
transformational. Because I do hear a lot of people like, I transform my pain into purpose. And it's like, that is the purpose. Like,
That is the purpose. I turn pain
literally,
into healing or to growth or but it is a purpose. It's finding like
yeah,
how again, it's that making meaning of things. It's rewriting the narrative.
yes. Yeah. And any way that you look at it, I feel like we all have our different ways and whatever works for you. But I feel
Yeah.
like just by hearing what you said in this conversation and what you were saying, I'm like, so it really is true because everybody has their own method. Everybody has their
Yeah.
own, I did this, I did this. But I was thinking the last couple of years, I'm like, but we all are doing the same thing in a different way. It's
Yes.
all at the end of the day, healing emotional blocks, healing money blocks, healing trauma. We just call ourselves different things, and maybe that's putting labels on stuff. So it's like, like that's just my experience, like that's my perspective and that's my
Yeah.
experience because I haven't had other experiences besides what I talk about. So
Right.
it's like, but me as a person, I love to hear other people's stories, their experiences. I love learning. I was always that like nerdy science. I want to know what this works. Why does this work
Yeah.
like this? What do you mean? I would ask questions and constantly like nobody knew how to answer my questions.
Yeah.
And then one day I'm like, astrology. Oh, like, and that was, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So it's like, and psychology too. I wanted to know why people do what people do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like everybody else around me and everybody on the podcast, it seems like I'm like, Mama, I wish I would have found you when I was a kid. To not
Yeah.
feel so alone, through this experience. But it's like now we have the internet and there's just so much more ways to kind of like instead of reading my encyclopedias, or
Yeah.
reading my library books.
Right.
Go to
I
the
mean, we used to
library.
have to like check something out and like look at it and then write your notes because then you have to turn the book back.
Yes. Oh my God, me
Not
too.
like bookmark it in my whatever searches. But yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we focus so much on what we're all doing differently that sometimes we forget that we're to focus on what we're all doing similarly. And if we all did healing the same way, it wouldn't work
It wouldn't work. Yeah.
because we have to treat people as individuals and what they need, and what one person needs isn't what another person needs. And so if we focus, there's like this discord amongst, in different groups of, professions where it's like, well, my way is better than your way, or like, oh, let me tell you why you're wrong, rather than like, oh, that's really interesting. This also works too.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Get open to that. Yes. That's like that perspective on, well, this worked for you. Or it's like just communicating and having a conversation. Like the one thing that I love about doing my podcast is every single week, twice a week, usually that I record podcasts, it's always exactly what I need to hear,
Yeah.
or it's maybe exactly what they need to hear. Maybe I don't ask or they don't tell me, as much as maybe I tell them or I'm asking, but like I'm like, gosh, I learned so much from just having conversations with other people and listening to their experience because I like to hear other people's point of views, because maybe my point of view is like too narrow. And
Yeah.
I'm having experts on this podcast that's what they do. So they obviously have expert experience on the topic or whatever. So yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely can understand that when you say like that disconnect. And I feel like that also is mirrored within ourselves too, of like the
Oh,
disconnect from ourself,
totally. I think people can be very disconnected from the self.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like with that compassion and, that sensitivity of like that we're all at heart. I say this example all the time that like if you drive down the road and somebody's in an accident, you most people, I mean, maybe now in
Mhm.
today's generation it's a little sketchy, but you would be like, let me stop and help make sure that person's okay.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you have to do that. That's inside of you. Like I always say that because I feel like that's powerful. Like, or if
Yeah.
you see somebody hurting, your natural instinct is not to hurt them more. But it's like we do that to ourselves.
Hmm.
It's like that was that question of, but why me? I'm asking
Yeah.
myself, but
Right?
why? And it's like, oh, I get it. Because I would never treat somebody the way that, like treat people the
Yeah.
way you want to be treated, like that whole thing. I mean, there's obviously tons of that's a whole other
That's a
conversation.
whole other thing, but we are our own worst enemies.
Yes.
Even like my clients, like, oh my gosh, like this, what you said was so profound. I'm like, I wish I could take my own advice sometimes.
Yes. I think I said that last week. I'm like,
Yeah.
my
Like,
client actually told me, she said, Lauren, saying something, and she was asking me something. I was like, well, I don't make this about me, but she's like, no, I want to hear your experience
yeah.
because I learned from your experience. And I was like, okay, so this is what happened. Told her what happened. Told her like the Cliff Notes version, and then she was like, so can I offer you advice? And I was like, sure, because at this point, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know what I'm doing right now. Like it's just the energy that I was in, and I knew I trusted myself. I knew what I was supposed to be doing, but it's like there wasn't, you know. And then she was kind of having a very similar thing. So I was like, let me share this with you. And I shared it with her. And she was like, so can I tell you something? And I was like, sure, anything. I'm open for all of it. What do you need to tell me? Maybe you have the answer. And she was like, why don't you take your own advice? And I just like started, here's me on a client call, just tearing up. And I'm like releasing like, that's what I needed to hear. And it's
Yeah.
why I love doing one-on-ones because that's actually what that's what I needed to hear from my client.
I learned so much from my clients, more than they realize, I think. But it's also like some of the times when I'm saying something, I'm like, oh, I should really do that for myself. But
Yeah,
I do learn so much from them that it's a relationship. It's, yes, there's different roles within that relationship, but
yeah, of
there's a
course.
lot of value in that therapeutic relationship because it flows both ways sometimes.
Yeah. And I often think I'm speaking to like entrepreneurs specifically. And most of my clients are entrepreneurs, but I think that they're givers. Most of
Yeah.
everybody that I work with are, I mean, probably everybody I work with are givers. And it's like we give so much sometimes to
Mhm.
our families, our relationships, our clients, our business, that at the end of the day, sometimes we forget that now we don't have enough to give to ourselves. And
Yeah.
that's I think that's where I was, that I was giving without boundaries, forgetting boundaries sometimes, and reminding myself, no, you don't have energy for that. Like, put a boundary, like put a boundary up, or like reminding my clients of like them, you need acceptance. There's boundaries here, like you, and then it's like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was like a reminder to myself too. It's like, oh yeah, boundaries, like
Yeah.
that constant mirror, which I love and I need in my life. I shouldn't say need, but I desire and want in my
Yeah.
life because I don't know how else to run it, how else to be. Like I just,
Yeah. Well,
the
it's part of your
other way doesn't.
purpose.
Yeah,
It's part of your why.
yeah, 100%. And I could talk about this all day. I'm a,
Yeah. I love
yeah,
talking about these things because it's people, I think we know them, but we don't really know them.
right. Yeah, it's like, uh, what does that guru say? It's like you think you know everything, but you know nothing at all.
Yep. There's this quote from Carl, or kind of phrase from Carl Rogers, who was like the father of like humanistic psychology, but it's we're always in the process of becoming. We're
Yep,
always in the process of becoming something else. We're not stagnant. Like life is, there's the impermanence of life. It's never the same from moment to moment,
right,
but we want to continue to grow and evolve into who we are.
right,
And that's, if we're not open to hearing other people, if we're not open to learning, then how are we gonna, again, that post-traumatic, how are we gonna grow and heal ourselves and
right.
find something new in this?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. This has been a very powerful conversation. So before we close, I would love to for you to share with anybody listening how navigating loss, illness, and feeling that disconnect from self. What is like one small practice or reminder that can help them start to feel safe and hopeful again, like today when they're listening?
Yeah. I think it's try and be future thinking. Sometimes especially with certain illnesses, we don't know what our future is,
Right.
but the littlest things that we can control, it's focusing on what you can control versus what you can't control. Because especially with illness, um, there is so much that's out of our control. And so
Yeah.
focusing on the little things like I'm going to choose what kind of tea I drink today. I am going to choose what music I listen to. I get to choose, what clothes I put on. Well, sometimes I will say that with a caveat because sometimes you can't always choose because of what you're going through.
Right.
But I can choose. I can choose this color or that color. So there's things that I can control. I can control reaching out. And so that I think is the biggest thing is not focusing on what you can't, but what you can. And try and be as future thinking, whether it's like looking to tomorrow or a week. There have been times in my various illnesses journeys where it was like you might have 3 weeks, you might have 3 months, you might have 3 years. And that's really scary. So I couldn't think 3 years down the road, but I can think 3 hours down the road or 3 days down the road. And then it was like another day. So I think that is like the biggest thing, and just kind of be okay with not being okay, which is so cliche,
Yeah.
but it's
You're right.
it's acknowledging that I have to have a relationship with this pain. I have to have a relationship with this, cancer or illness, because if I don't, then I'm trying to control it rather than accepting it and allowing it to exist. You might not like it. It's like a really annoying visitor that you just want to keep kicking out, but they won't leave, right? But how do you
Right.
coexist with it? How do you have a relationship with it where you can, again, find meaning in whatever's happening, you know, whether it's like, I don't know what the meaning is. What does it mean when I have this and I have to go through all these treatments? But it means that like I am tested with something that might change who I am and be okay with that.
Yeah. That's very
It's the
beautiful.
acceptance piece of it, which is a big phase of grief and loss. It's acceptance.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like speaking of acceptance, it's one of my gifts this lifetime,
Hmm.
but it's actually one of the most challenging opportunities that I had to
Yeah.
experience it. Now looking back, I'm like, wow, just learning learning
Yeah.
the art of acceptance is powerful for me,
Yeah.
especially forgiveness too, of I can't control this, and I'm constantly out of flow or constantly out of this, or when I try to control this or that, it's like, let me just surrender. I feel like that's a huge thing right now, surrendering and just trust.
Yeah.
And it's just like when you say that to somebody in this situation,
Yeah.
they're probably going to want to beat the shit out of you.
Oh, people are like, shut the fuck up, Lonnie. Like, stop being a cautious optimist. But there's this,
Process. Yeah. It's really a process.
it
Like
is
it's
a
a journey.
process,
Yeah.
but it's the letting go of suffering, which is a very Buddhist, philosophy. If we let go of suffering and just lean into life, it can be so much different. It can be so much more meaningful and enjoyable in many ways.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom. And thank you for all of you listeners. And if you want to connect with Loni, make sure you check out her links below in the description box. If you're watching this over on YouTube or if you're listening to this, all of her links will be below in the show notes. And also, if you want to, she's gifting a copy, which is very generous of her, a copy of her new children's book. I know we didn't get to speak about that much, but you can check that out. I will also drop that link below in the show notes as well. And thank you so much for listening to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. Please make sure you share this episode and you also leave a review and share this with somebody that you feel that would gain knowledge from listening. It helps us bring more incredible guests in, and it helps support the podcast and all of the guests on the podcast. So to stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next week.
If today's episode spoke to you and you're ready to rise with support, I'd love to invite you in to the Enlightened Misfits Sisterhood, a sacred community for spiritual entrepreneurs to heal, grow, and lead with purpose. You can join us by using the link below in the show notes or connecting with me over on Facebook or Instagram at The Mermaid Light. If you loved today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave a review. This helps support us reach more women who are ready to rise. Remember, your journey isn't about fitting in. It's about embracing the truth of who you are. Until next time, stay inspired, stay aligned, and keep creating your extraordinary path. This is Lauren, and you've been listening to the Enlightened Misfits podcast.